Welcome to New Life. I'm Pastor Terry. See lots of new faces. Good to have you this morning. If you come here long enough and you come on holiday Sundays, you'll hear me say this. And so no offense, Facebook crowd, but I love the people that show up on holiday Sundays. These are my favorite Sundays, and so you get the best sermon on holiday Sundays. So it's Labor Day. Here we go. Here's the announcement for today. I'm sure she already said you didn't say it. Oh, you didn't do the announcements. Okay. Sorry. This is my wife on the front row. She's in a sleeping bag, and so I can't. That's funny to me. If you get cold on Sunday, also you can bring your sleeping bag. So the announcement's this: this Wednesday is what we are calling First Wednesday. It's the first Wednesday of the month. Every first Wednesday from here on out, we're going to have a service in here at 6:30. We've been doing classes, but on first Wednesday we come in here. There's going to be worship, testimonies, and communion. And so I invite everybody to come first Wednesday. Come check it out. We won't do it every Wednesday. We'll go back to classes the next one, but come see us on first Wednesday. Very excited. We've got several testimonies already lined up. We're excited to hear that. So we'll see you at 6:30 Thursday. Number two, every time somebody that is a living miracle comes back to church, I like to say something about it. So Amanda Miller is here this morning. We've been praying for you. We've been thinking about you. I'm so glad to have you back this morning. Man, it's good. It's good to see you here. Very excited. Here we go. Every time I remember, I'm gonna start doing this on Sunday mornings. Throughout the week, verses jump out at me that have nothing to do with the sermon. I either get them on my little app or I hear them in class, and I've got 3 verses this week. So these are for those of you that may not get anything out of the sermon here in a minute. You just came here for this right now. Here's my 3 verses for the week. Listen to them all, and then I'm going to reiterate. Revelation 3:20. I know somebody needs to hear this morning. This is Jesus speaking, and he says, "Here I am. I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and eat with them, and they will eat with me." Number 2, Matthew 7:7. "Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be open. For everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds, and the one who knocks, the door will be open." Number 3, Isaiah 55:11 out of the Old Testament. This is God speaking. "It is the same with my word, says the Lord. I send it out, and it always produces fruit. I will accomplish all I want it to, and it will prosper everywhere I send it." Another version says that my word does not return void. So, for those of you that need it this morning, God said, if he's knocking and you open the door, he'll come in. And he says, and if you knock, he'll open the door. Now, there are 2 different doors. The one he's talking about that he needs you to open is the one to your life, to your heart, to your marriage. I'll tell you, this is the door of all the things you own. Like you are, where are you, God, in my marriage? And Jesus says, I'm knocking and you won't let me in. Where are you, God, in my finances? Jesus says, I'm knocking, but you won't let me in. Where are you, God, in my health? Wherever you fill in the blank with. Where are you? And the answer is, he's knocking. And if you'll open the door, it doesn't say he might come in. It doesn't even say he'll consider coming in. It says, I will come in and I will eat with you. And so all the places that you can't seem to find him, open the door. He wants to come in. Number 2, there are some things that are not in your heart, but out there. And you just want it. Go knock on the door. Quit being so timid. Quit being so scared. Just ask. Ask for it. I tell you, I think the number one thing people tell me when I'm like, why don't you just ask God for that? Well, I already have enough. Somebody needs that more than me. Well, that's as dumb as one of my granddaughters saying, well, Grandpa, I'd ask for a sucker, but I know my sister needs a sucker more than me. Well, guess what? I got 2 suckers. I got 20. I got all the suckers in the world. Like, I am not limited by, well, I would give you that granddaughter, but I already gave it to my other granddaughter. We do not have a God that is limited. You don't have to wait thinking, well, I'm going to let somebody else have my miracle. No, pray for both. Ask for what you need and pray for them also. He's not limited. All that to say, he said these things. And then he says, his word, he will accomplish that. And so he said it, he meant it. Open the door if he's knocking, and some of you need to knock. Some of you need to knock today. And this, I read up on this knocking thing. Like, what does it mean? Like, it means, the beginning of the verse means talk to God about it, ask for it. But the rest of it is go to the place that you're wanting. Like, if you're looking for a new job, pray, God, give me a new job, and then go to the place you want a job and go knock on the door and say, hey, are you looking for help? We get so timid, we don't go ask for opportunities. He says, be a people that just walk out there, and you might find out they're like, well, you know what? If you'd have come yesterday, we didn't have an opening. But since you came today, I'll hire you right now. If you need forgiveness, go ask for it. He's just saying, be a people that's not timid. Be a people that's not fearful. Go get what he's promised you. All right, that was free. Here we go. This will cost you. I went to a meeting on Wednesday. It was a lunch meeting in Amarillo, and I got to meet a guy that works for Region 16 that used to coach over at Borger. And he started coaching in Borger in 1995, right after I graduated. And so as I'm sitting down talking to him, like, oh, how cool, we've never met. I'm like, I bet you know some good Borger stories. And he said, yeah. He said, I guess you had Coach Buck. And so here you go, guys. Ladies, this may not mean a thing to you, but I'm going to connect with the guys real quick. I said, oh, I know Coach Buck. He was my 6th grade PE coach from the 90s. Back when you had to climb the rope, or at least sit there and hang on it, because I was not ever going to climb that rope. Is that funny? Some of you also couldn't climb the rope. I can't climb the rope. I have no need to climb a rope. They make ladders, snorkel lifts. I don't need ropes. Anyway, I'm in Coach Buck's class. I'm 6th grade. I'm an oldest child and an oldest grandkid. And so most of my life experience has been with a bunch of, in their young 20s, aunts and uncles and parents, and a bunch of younger cousins. I haven't really been around a whole lot of authority up until I get into the 6th grade, when I go into junior high. And it's 3 grade schools all mixing together as one. And first day of PE, I'm in the white shirt that they made us buy. I'm in the white shorts that they made us buy, and the white tall socks and the white shoes. And there we are standing, in line, and they're calling out names. And my whole life up until 6th grade, if you mispronounced our family name, we would say it back to you the way it should be said. If you say, oh, Terry Stegall, I would say, no, it's Stegall. And then they'd say, oh, Terry Stiegel. And I'd say, no, it's Terry Stegall. My wife's really good at it. She'll get you. If you say it wrong, she'll say it's like the ball. And so now you know how to say my name right. Coach Buck calls out my name in front of the whole 6th grade PE class, and he said it wrong. And I said to Coach Buck in front of everybody, no, it's Stegall. Well, in the 90s, you didn't talk back to teachers. You didn't talk back to coaches. It was a different world than it is today. In fact, I even think today a coach might say, I'm so sorry, and they might say it right, but not Coach Buck. Anyway, I don't want to tell you all the rest of all the stories of all the bad stuff. I'll just tell you that my first experience with team, I'm going to talk about team this morning. My first experience with team was learning that there is authority, and I didn't have it. For the rest of my career, he could call me whatever he wanted. I found out I am not in charge of what Coach Buck calls me. He's in charge, and he can do whatever he wants. I move into 7th grade, and I become an offensive lineman. We were talking in men's Sunday school this morning about team stuff, about sports stuff. I found out some cool stories. I guess in the 80s, the Dalhart team was still playing Stratford and went over and stole the elk. Do you remember this? Oh, yeah. You did it? Oh, you know who did it. Yeah, snitches get stitches from this side. And then one year they painted the elk. I was telling stories. The Pampa used to come steal the bulldog. We had all this team stuff going on back in the 80s and 90s. And, I mean, it was like public. You didn't even have to be on the team to do that kind of thing. You just, were all for your high school football team. In 7th grade, I became it was a Borger Bronco at the time. They're now they call them Bulldogs all the way through, but middle school used to be the Broncos. And I remember, I'm going to kind of demonstrate here so you can get your brain wrapped around this. So I was what was called a pulling guard. So there's a center right here, and I'm this guard, and then there's a tackle over here. And we had a play, and believe it or not, so this would be 80s. It was called 428 Geo. I can't believe I remember that. I don't know what I had for supper last night. But 428 Geo, they'd snap the ball, and then we had technique, okay? So on this team, I had a position. I was right guard. And then I had a technique. And when they snapped it, you had to take that elbow. Any guards know this. Pulling guards know you had to throw that elbow back, because when you throw that elbow, your foot goes with it, and then you'd run, not very fast. We'd run around the corner. 428 meant the 4-back was getting the ball, and he was going. The 2 would signify which way he's going, and then the 8's going to be over here. And we'd run around the outside, and he'd follow us, and we'd go make a touchdown, right? Not only did we have 428 Geo, we had 428 Geo counter. So we would run that 428 Geo several times in the game, and every time they'd see me do this, all the defense goes this way. Well, the counter was when we'd do this, and we'd run over here, and then they'd hand the ball back to a guy going that way. It was amazing. Everybody on our little 7th grade B team, we knew our position, we knew our technique, we knew what we were supposed to be doing, and if everybody did what they were supposed to be doing, we win. We all had a spot. We all had a technique. Whenever I moved to Dalhart in 2010, websites for churches were a big thing. Obviously, as you can tell, websites are not as big a thing as they were, because you probably don't even know we have a website. And if we do, I don't even know what's on that website. I wouldn't go look it up. There's probably wrong times and wrong addresses and all these things. We're all Facebook now and Insta, and we don't have a church Snap or TikTok, nor do I want one. I don't know. I'm getting old enough that I'm starting to be grumpy about that stuff. But on our website in Borger, before I got here, we called it www.mygrace.me. .me was a new extension you could get instead of .com, and it was mygrace.me. So then when I moved up here and I was into this new, this is all new church stuff. I'm a young church leader, and so we did www.mynewlife.me. I remember being in a meeting for DMA, which is Dalhart Ministers Alliance, and Monsignor Michael was at the Catholic Church at the time, and we were going to get us a DMA website. And so we decided in this meeting, I raised my hand, I'm like, hey, we did the mygrace.me over in Borger, and it was cool. And then got up here, and we do mynewlife.me, and it was cool. And I said, so why don't we do mydma.me? And this old fuddy-dud said, that's a terrible idea. And I finally understand what he's talking about. I'm going to come back to this. I just want your brain open so you can hear what I've got to say this morning about team. I grew up in First Methodist Church, Borger, and every time somebody joined the church, it'd be at the end of the service, and trust me, we're not going to do this morning. But at the end of the service, the preacher would get up in their flowing robe and say something like, does anybody need to come down and get baptized, or does anybody need to come say anything, or does anybody need to join the church? And at the end of the service, for the last song, we would invite people to come join the church. And then they would walk all the way down to the front, and you had to join the church up in front of everybody and actually make some vows. Any of you ever been to a church where you had to join the church in front of everybody? Yes. Okay, again, not going to do it here. But here's what they would ask them, and I remember I always was very intrigued when people would join the church. The pastor would say, will you support First Methodist Church Borger with your presence, your gifts, and your prayer? And they would say, we will, or I do, or whatever, whatever they said, they do it. And then it was in stone. Your name went on the list. When we left that church, I had to write a letter to Albuquerque, to the bishop, to get my name off the list. Once you get on that list, it's hard to get off that list. But I said those things. I will support this church with my presence, my gifts, and my prayer. In Judges 7:19, Gideon is this little bitty man in Judges before this. He gets called by the Lord to go fight this battle. God sends an angel to go find him. It's a great story. Go read Judges chapter 6 and chapter 7 to learn about Gideon. At the very beginning of the story, the angel comes in and says, "Mighty man of God, you got to follow God and go do these things for me." Now we're going to fast forward all the way through it. Gideon's about to go fight this war. Gideon resisted this. He didn't want to do this. And when it was time to go to war, 25,000 people showed up to be on Gideon's army, on the team, right? 25,000 showed up, and God said, "This is too many." And then he told Gideon, "Tell everybody that's there, if they're scared or want to go home or have a crop in the field or they have a new wife or whatever, tell them to go home." 12,000 went home. And so now he's down to a little over 12,000 people. And God says the army is still too big. And Gideon's getting nervous at this point. And God says, "Go send the army down to the river and watch how they drink. And as they drink, I'm going to separate the rest." So 300 of them, everybody but 300 got down. No, the 300, hold on, let me get it right. 300 get down on their knees and they drink water like this. That's what it is. The 300 drink from their hand. What would be 11-7 shove their faces in the water and drink. Okay, not the point of today's sermon. Go read it. Good story. God said take the 300. There's the point. He said, "I want you to take the 300. The 300 are the ones that are kneeling, drinking out of their hand because they keep their eyes on what's going on around them. They're like hunters. They're focused on what's happening around them." And God tells Gideon, "You're going to take those 300 and you're going to go defeat this army." So now we get into Judges 7:19. And Gideon has already told these 300, what's going to happen here is you're going to take a jar, a trumpet, and fire, and we're going to go defeat these guys. And they're going, "Wait, this doesn't make sense. I don't understand." And in 7, I'll read it, 7:19. So Gideon and his 100 of the 300, they divided into thirds. His 100 men who were with him came to the side of the tents. It was late in the night, and different soldiers had just come to keep watch. Then the men blew their horns, broke the pots, and took the flames and held it up in the air. And all three groups blew their horns at the same time, and they broke their pots. They held the sticks of fire in their left hand, and the horns to be blown were in their right hands. And they called out, "A sword for the Lord and for Gideon." And each man stood around in his place. And all the Midianite armies ran. They cried out and ran away. Gideon takes a team of people, and God wanted him to have a small team. He put this small team together, and then that team was obedient, and they win the war. I want to move into Joshua. So, totally different war. This is after Moses brings the Israelites out of Egypt. They're about to go into the promised land. Moses is now dead, and Joshua is the commander of the army. Then the Lord said to Joshua, "See, I have delivered Jericho into your hands, along with its king and with its fighting men. March around the city once with all the armed men every day for 6 days. Have 7 priests carry trumpets and carry the ark, and on the 7th day, march around 7 times the whole army and give a loud shout, and the walls of the city will collapse, and the army will go up, and everyone will go straight in." Now, moving to Joshua 6:15. On the 7th day, they got up at daybreak, and they marched around the city 7 times in the same manner, except that on that day they circled the city the 7th time. And on the 7th time, the priests sounded the trumpet. Joshua commanded the army, "Shout, for the Lord has given you the city and all that is in it, and devote it to the Lord. And only Rahab the prostitute and all who are with her shall be spared, because she hid the spies. But keep away from the devoted things, so that you will not bring about your own destruction by taking any of them. Otherwise you will make all the camp liable for the destruction. And all the silver and gold and all the articles of bronze and iron that are sacred to the Lord must go to its treasury. When the trumpet sounded, the army shouted, and at the sound of the trumpet, when the men gave a loud shout, the wall collapsed. So everyone charged straight in, and they took the city. They devoted the city to the Lord and destroyed everything with the sword. Again, we have a team where everybody has a position. Everybody has a technique. And when they work in unison, it works. It's like the Spartans. Spartans won wars because they marched together. They hooked shields together. They stepped together. They had swords together. In Ecclesiastes 4:12, it says that though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. We don't make rope like people used to. If you wanted a rope back in the day, you had to make your own rope. We just go buy rope. You go look at rope, and it has a weight on it. It'll tell you how much it'll hold or not hold. And if you cared to spend the time to go do it, you could go buy 3 ropes and go hang something on one until it busts. So let's just say you hang 100 pounds on a rope and it snaps a rope, and then you braid it together. That rope that's braided together holds 450 pounds. Not 300, 450. Because the way the braids link together, this is what this scripture is about. Whenever it links together and the pressure is pulled on it, it grabs a hold of the next one, and it can accomplish far more than just one. Deuteronomy 32:30. How could one person chase 1,000 of them and 2 put 10,000 to flight? Except for the rock, their Lord had given the enemy up. We can find time and time again in the Bible when 2's better than 1. When 300 is far better than 2. When a group of people can accomplish something that one can't do. Take Jesus, for instance. First 30 years of his life, all we know is that he spent time with his brothers, his sisters, and his mom and dad. When it's time for him to begin to do his ministry, the first thing he does is gather 12 to walk with him. The King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, understood that in order to accomplish what he had to accomplish, and believe me, he had all the power he needed to do it, but he said, I need 12 to walk with me. Those 12 ended up being 72. Even Jesus did not attempt to do what he was called to do alone. How guilty are we of being a people that's like, I'm on my own. Pick myself up by my bootstraps. I got this. I'll handle it. I'll figure it out. I don't need anybody. In fact, we've been trained to not need anybody. You were raised to be independent. The Bible talks of that as if it's foolish. We're built to be dependent. John 17:21 and 24. Many people, if I were to say, everybody stand up and we'll say the Lord's Prayer, we would say, Our Father who art in heaven. That's what your Bible calls the Lord's Prayer. I'm going to read the actual Lord's Prayer. The one that we say it before football games, like that's going to make a difference. I think both teams are saying it, or maybe one's not. Maybe that's what happens. The one who doesn't say the Lord's Prayer loses. That's the prayer that God said, this is how you should pray. But when the Lord actually prayed, I want you to hear what he prayed for us. This is God praying for you. This is Jesus praying to God for you. John 17:21 through 24. I pray that they will be one, just as you and I are one. As you are in me, Father, and I am in you. And may they be in us, so that the world will believe you sent me. I have given them the glory you gave me, so they may be one as we are one. I am in them, and you are in me. And may they experience such perfect unity that the world will know that you sent me and that you love them as much as you love me. Father, I want these whom you have given to me to be with me where I am. Then they can see all the glory you gave me because you loved me even before the world began. I want to dig into this just a little bit more. Okay, let's go back over it. I pray that they will all be one. Just like me and you, Dad, are one. And may they be in us so that the world will believe you sent me. Have you ever considered that if the world's not believing, what it's lacking is a church that walks as one? Jesus is praying that the church would walk as one so that the world will know that God sent him. I don't think we think in those terms. I think we pray, Lord, let them trust you, let them see you, let them believe in you. And Jesus is praying, let the church be one, let the body of Christ be one so that the world will know. Well, there's another promise in here. I am in them and you are in me. May they experience such perfect unity that the world will know that you sent me. Jesus is praying that the world finds out about him, and his method, his mode, his strategy is us. I'm not sure how we're doing with that. I think if we had done this right, we may have the church at Dalhart, not the 25 churches of Dalhart. We have a weird system. We're not. Don't worry. We're not closing down and making the church at Dalhart. I do like down in Midland, the church we planted down there. It's called Real Church Midland. And I think that's kind of pokey. They say they're the only real church, right? In Midland. I'm not saying that we're going to have to bust it all down and bring it back. What I do think is that within the walls of each church that exists, I think this still can happen. I think that when we walk in unity, the world will see. The world will know. What keeps the world from knowing? Our drama. Our mess. And I'm not just like picking on New Life like every church. If you've ever been to a church that didn't have a mess, leave quickly. You're about to start one. There is no perfect church. Nobody's all there. In fact, we go from one place to another, and we find messes, disaster, disunity everywhere we go. But I got to come back to this as I'm getting ready, as I'm thinking about why do we come to church? That's what I want. I'm studying. Why do we even come to church? What's the point? Well, part of the point is that we'd be in unity so that the world will know. I got to come back and tell you, Monsignor Michael knew something. He was older than me. I was just a pup. I was a kid. I didn't know. What he was saying is, we don't want to do mydma.me. He goes, we want to do our dma.us, our new life.us, our grace.us. It's the we that's missing. When you go back and do it like we did, when you have my new life, my great, and I don't think these are like doctrinal theological problems. It's just kind of the way in the late 90s and early 2000s we saw church. We were presenting a product. It was this. We need to have an attractional church. That's what we were doing. It's like, we need to have a church that attracts people. Well, biblically speaking, God said you want to attract people, be unified. But we were being attractional, saying if you come here, you'll get what you want. We will train you, and so listen to these. We will train you to think about you. We want you to ask yourself, did you like the music? Do you like the paint? Did you like the sermon? No? Nobody? Okay. Do you like the class? Do you like the teacher? Do you like the temperature? No? Did you like the retreat? Was that for you? Did that fit what you needed? How do you feel? What do you think? What do you want? And churches across America over the last 20 years have become professional U-church. Now, hold on. Cool thing about this three-stranded cord is you're one of them. You're one of the cords. Okay, I'll give you that. I think it's okay and it's important to go to a place that fits. I think you need to go to a place that you like I mean, I think the sermons ought to be good and I think the music ought to be good. I think the problem becomes when we only think about how it affects me. When we only think about how the message and the music and the atmosphere, I mean, when we only think about how it affects me, we have ourselves trained to just be looking to what's going to fit me. And that's not unity at all. In fact, if we were to change it to this is our new life instead of this is my new life, how much more effective would that be? Well, it's not rhetorical. The answer is 10 times. The answer biblically is 10 times. God said one can run off 1,000, but two can run off 10,000. 10 times the power when it's we instead of me. Now, this doesn't just have to be at church. This can be at home. At home, 10 times the power of we instead of me. This can be at work. This concept works everywhere. When it's we, it's times 10. When it's me, it's still powerful. God can still use you. You're not damned. It's not all over. You're not going to hell. You know, you're not a total loss. You're not miserable. None of that. None of that. You can have a completely fulfilled, wonderful life all alone. But you can have 10 times better when you will let we be involved. If it's for me, it's shallow and temporary. If it's for me, it's shallow and temporary. If it's for we, it's 3 chords. And here's the cool thing about the 3 chords. In our marriage, it's me, my wife, and my wife. Now, God's our third. What's hers is hers. What's mine is hers. All joking aside, any marriage that has you and God and him, you and God and her, that's strength. That's strength. Well, here at church, it's me and you and God. Or you and her and God. Or you and him and God. You know, our 3 chords are, it's my perspective plus everybody else's perspective plus God's perspective. When we tie that all together, it can't be broken. It can't be broken. Here's how this fleshes out. You really go in, Boyd's not here this morning, Boyd will tell you this. He's like, sometimes I come in and I'm listening and I'm like, that sermon ain't for me. And so I start praying. God, I don't know who that sermon's for, but I'm asking you to do a miracle in their life this morning. And if you'll show them to me, I'll go pray for them or whatever. Like he gets to the point going, this one's not for me, so I must be sitting next to somebody that this one's for. Instead of, well, that's not for me. I need to go find some place that's all about me. Having this we concept has me start going, if that's not connecting with me, who do I need to be praying for, looking for, talking to, shaking a hand? You're here this morning for a reason. And it may not be because you needed this sermon. You're here this morning for a reason, and it may not have anything to do with whether you like the songs that were picked or not. You're here this morning for a reason, and if you're trained to think that it's all about what you get out of it, you will miss out on the power of we. At the end of this, here's a true statement. You need to come to church. You need to come to church on Sunday mornings. You need to come to church on Wednesday nights. But it's not why you think. You were told that growing up because you want to be on God's good side. You cannot go to church and be on God's good side. You can come to church and not be on God's good side. Coming to church doesn't make you on his good side or not on his good side. Coming to church doesn't make you saved or not saved. Coming to church brings you to we. You need to come to church because I need you. You need to come to church because she needs you and he needs you. And them 2 guys in the back seriously need you. Sometimes you're just supposed to be here to encourage us. You also need to come to church because you'll get some benefit out of it. At some point, you're liable to hear something that's good or blesses you. But you also need to come to church because Dalhart needs it. We find out in the Old Testament that God inhabits the praises of his people. So when we praise together, when we sing together, His Spirit comes here, His presence comes here, and it drizzles all over town. You go find cities that are falling apart, you'll find cities where there's not unity in the church. You go find cities that are successful, you'll find cities where there's unity in the church. Period. Unity happens when we sing together. Unity happens when we pray together. Unity happens when we pray for each other and touch each other, whether it's holding hands or laying on hands or side hugs or whatever it is. Unity happens when we exist. It's good for me. It's good for this town. It's good for you. So the question is this morning, what's your spot? If we're going to blow up the mindset that you're here to receive a word and you're here to be blessed and you're here to just receive, which you should receive a word and you should be blessed and you should receive, but that's not why you're here. You're here because there's a spot. Just like being a right guard. What's your spot? I wasn't the quarterback, I wasn't the receiver, I wasn't the running back. If all of us just did the same dumb thing, you wouldn't win any games. But when everybody on the team is in their spot, doing their technique, and I don't know what your spot is. You got to figure out what your spot is. And sometimes your spot is to come here and get filled up so you can go out there and do what it is. Sometimes your spot's being on the school board. Sometimes your spot's being on city council. Sometimes your spot is teaching fourth grade in Stratford. Sometimes your spot doesn't have to do anything with this place, but you need to be here so that we can encourage each other. Tell you what, the darkest place you'll ever be is in your spot without coming in and getting filled up, getting prayed for, getting encouraged. It's a dark place out there when you're all alone. If you're a fourth grade teacher, it's because God called you to be a fourth grade teacher. He opened that door, you knocked on it, you walked through it, and there you are. Are you going to go try to do that all on your own? Or are you going to come and be a part of a we that can support you? At any given moment in this church, there's somebody that's having the worst day of their life and somebody that's having the best day of their life. There's somebody that's having a hard time and somebody that's having a good time, and that's why He created we like this, so that whenever I'm down, you can come support me, and I'm the king of that. I'm the king of need. I just don't always stand up here and say it. I need your prayers. I need your encouragement. But it's not about me, and so I don't stand up here and just talk about it all the time, but then I'm realizing I want to be there for you, and I want you to be there for me. And I want you all to be there for this side and you all to be there for that side, and the people in the middle just stay on the fence. Y'all take care of each other. I want to have a church. I want to go to church with people that care about each other, that serve each other, that pray for each other, and get fired up and go out into this world and do what God's called us to do. What's your spot? What's your technique? And then the question is, what's the play? What play did we call? So that we can go out and do the strategy. Thing is this, we don't even get to call plays unless we're in unity. We're not even on the field at the same time unless we're in unity. I'll end with this. We're in the last days. I don't know if we got 2 months left, 2 years left, 2 decades, 2 millennia. I don't know, but it's happening. What's written in the Bible is happening. That American hostage that had part of his arm either shot off or removed and lived 7 months as a hostage got shot 2 days ago. It's bad. And now they're killing Americans. It's bad. It's not going to get better. There's wars. There's rumors of war. I mean, we're living in some volatile times. If you don't need to go watch the news. But if you don't believe me, go watch the news. It's bad. Loaf of bread's costing some money. Things are happening, and here's the point in me saying this. We're in the last days, which means we got to have a strategy. In the last days, there will be a great harvest. There will be people all over Dallam and Hartley counties running in to find hope, to find truth, to find help. And the elders here prayed, and when we started building this room, we knew we were building an ark. We were building a place so that in the last days we have enough room to minister to the people that need ministry. It's the last days. There will be a harvest. We've built the ark. It's here. It exists. So my question this morning is, will you support New Life with your presence, your gifts, and your prayer? Because I want to tell you, New Life supports you with our presence, our gifts, and our prayers. We're supposed to be a we. This is the most we church I've ever been a part of, and if this came across like I'm getting down on you, it's not. I just got to get our brains opened up to what spot are you supposed to be in, where you're supposed to be there. I love this church. I love this church. I love all the we have, but we're starting to get some more we's in here. And we're going to have to find unity as we add. I see new faces all over the place, and so this is a mess for those of you that have been here last 12 to 14 years. We have been working hard to bring in some more we's, and so the we's are here. Let's get some unity going. Find a place to serve. Find a place to be fed. Come on Wednesday nights. Find a class you like. Come down here and pray. Find out how New Life can get behind whatever it is you're doing out there. You're not alone, and if you are, you're not supposed to be. We want to support what our people are supporting. I'm not going to make anybody come down. We're not going to go back to those things, but it's just got to be on the tip of your brain. Do I support this church with my presence, my gifts, my prayer? If we start doing that, we'll be a 3-braided cord that is absolutely unstoppable. Welcome to our new life.